With the release of the Expedition base set, the Pokemon power mechanic was split into Poke Powers and Poke Bodies. It stayed this way until Black and White base set combined the two mechanics back into one, which was called Abilities. I've looked through a decade's worth of Pokemon TCG sets to find what I believe to be the 10 best Poke Powers ever. Let's dive in, starting with an honorable mention.
Hey guys, Cyber. Relax! I was just gonna get there. Anyway, as this little buddy was saying, 80% of you aren't subscribed to the channel, so hit that subscribe button. It really helps. Hey, what Pokemon are you?
The honorable mention is Energy Draw. Delcatty from Ruby and Sapphire base set had the generally useful Energy Draw Poke Power. Once during your turn, you may discard one energy card from your hand, then draw up to 3 cards from your deck. This Poke Power was widely used since drawing cards is very good and the requirement of discarding an energy is easy to fulfill, since 99% of Pokemon TCG decks will already be playing plenty of energy cards. Discarding energy could even be a good thing for decks like Blaziken, which used the Firestarter Poke Power to attach fire energy from the discard pile. Delcatty was commonly played alongside Magneton from the EX Dragon set, since the Magnetic Field Poke Power allows the player to retrieve 2 basic energies from the discard pile, creating an almost endless supply of resources to draw and discard and attach energy as you please with both Delcatty and Magneton on the field. Number 10. Fainting Spell. Effects that trigger on a coin flip are often not worth playing, but a chance to instantly knock out the opponent's attacking Pokemon is too good to pass up, especially when the Pokemon also has 2 great attacks. Gengar from Stormfront was a powerful meta card featured in multiple decks, including Mother Gengar in 2009 and Cursegar in 2010. Without the versatile and powerful attacks Shadow Room and Poltergeist, however, the Fainting Spell Poke Power might not have been enough to carry this card to success. Additionally, Fainting Spell only triggers if Gengar is knocked out by damage, not including damage counters placed by effects or special condition. While the 50-50 chance of instantly knocking out a Pokemon is insanely good, Gengar only made number 10 on my list today due to the stipulations I stated, and also because we have a lot of incredible cards and powers to discuss today. Number 9. Portrait. The best Poke Powers often support the player with drawing cards, searching for cards, or setting up their deck's strongest Pokemon. Smeargle's Portrait Poke Power can realistically do any of that, so long as your opponent has useful supporter cards in their hand. Smeargle existed during a format where Professor Oak's New Theory, Professor Juniper, and N were all widely played supporter cards, so there was a good chance that your opponent would have a useful supporter in their hand for you to copy with Portrait. The risk of this Poke Power was if your opponent only had one supporter card and it would hurt you to use it, like a Professor Juniper, which forces you to discard your hand. So players would often play their hand down to a point where they wouldn't mind using a Juniper, or they might pass up using Portrait entirely if it could potentially hurt more than it would help. Number 8. Energy Rain. Blastoise is famous in the trading card game for flooding the board with energy. Blastoise EX from the Fire Red and Leaf Green set is no exception to that, as it came equipped with the Energy Rain Poke Power. Energy Rain reads, as often as you like during your turn, you may attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and put 1 damage counter on that Pokemon. This Poke Power had infinite potential since these energies could be attached to any type of Pokemon, and also as many times a turn as you like. Blastoise EX's first notable success was at 2005 World Championships in the senior division with a very consistent deck using Delcatty and Magneton for support, but also as attackers when their typings were advantageous. Also included in this deck were Deoxys EX Attack Form and Deoxys EX Normal Form as Psychic type attackers. Blastoise EX would go on to be most known for the LBS deck the following season, which focused around Lugia EX and Steelix EX as attackers, with Blastoise EX to power them up. Number 7 is Psychic Bind, which is the Poke Power on Mesprits from Legends Awakened. Psychic Bind reads, when you put Mesprit from your hand onto your bench, you may use this power. Your opponent can't use any Poke Powers during their next turn. While some decks were completely reliant on Poke Powers and others used them sparingly, deciding to restrict your opponent from the Poke Power mechanic for their entire next turn was a brutal effect. Mesprit was seen in many types of decks, including AMU, which used Mesprit level X as the main attacker, DPL, which was an SP toolbox that could occasionally slap down a Mesprit at the right time, and Palkia G Lock, which used Mesprit Psychic Bind as a main core strategy of the deck to lock your opponent out of Poke Powers turn after turn. Number 6, Dark Palm. If you played the Pokemon TCG competitively between 2007 and 2010, you were likely terrified of Dusknoir's Dark Palm coming down out of nowhere and sending one of your Pokemon away. Dark Palm reads, once a turn, if your opponent has 4 or more benched Pokemon, you may choose one of them and shuffle that Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their deck. I would try to fit a 1-0-1 line of Dusknoir into any deck I could because it created opportunities to outplay opponents who did not play around the Dark Palm Pokepower. Something to remember is that Rare Candy used to allow you to evolve a Pokemon that had just come into play, so you could bench Duskull, play Rare Candy to immediately evolve into Dusknoir, and then activate Dark Palm all in the same turn. A popular strategy was to force your opponent's strong and established active Pokemon to the bench with something like Cyclone Energy or Warp Point, and then Dark Palm it back into their deck. Number 5, Quick Search. In the modern day of Pokemon, this ability on a Stage 2 Pokemon would probably not be quite as good as it was in the era of Pokepowers, since the game was slower and Stage 2 Pokemon were faster thanks to Rare Candy not having that pesky errata yet that states it can't be used on a Pokemon which came into play this turn. Quick Search Pidgeot was a staple card in 2005 decks like Rock-A-Lock and Nidoqueen, and 2006 decks like LBS and Evolutions, for its simple yet impactful Pokepower that let you search your deck for any one card. If you've ever needed just a single card from your deck to complete your setup or take your final prize card, I'm sure you can imagine just how game-changing this Quick Search Pokepower was. Number 4, Bright Look. You either hated it or loved it, but Luxray GL Level X's Bright Look dominated the game in an aggressive fashion for quite a while. With the powerful support that SP Pokemon received, like Energy Gain and Poketurn, Luxray GL Level X could be your attacker, your gust effect, or both, depending on the deck. Bright Look reads, when you put Luxray GL Level X from your hand onto your active Luxray GL, you may switch to defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, which allowed players to hunt down weaker benched Pokemon and quickly take prize cards faster than most other decks could. Luxray GL Level X was an incredibly important card in the 2009 and 2010 formats, featured in 2009 decks like Dialga Palkia Luxray, Luxape, and Luxdrill, and 2010 decks like Luxchomp and Jumpluff. Number 3, Telepass. Gardevoir's Telepass is the overpowered predecessor of Smeargle's Portrait Pokepower. Once during your turn, you may search your opponent's discard pile for a supporter and use that supporter as the effect of this power. While this Pokepower is limited to only once per turn, it is still so powerful because it lets you play a second supporter every turn, courtesy of your opponent. Some of the most popular supporters at the time were Roseanne's Research, Team Galactic's Wager, and BB's Search, to give you an idea of what effects Telepass would copy. This Pokepower is strong enough, but what pushed this card even further was its Psychic Lock attack, which deals 60 damage and says your opponent can't use any Pokepowers next turn. Ironic that the number 3 card on a video all about Pokepowers locks your opponent out of using Pokepowers. If you asked anyone who played competitively during this time what the best deck was, I wouldn't be surprised if every single person told you it was Gardevoir Gallade. Number 2, Cosmic Power. Claydol from Great Encounters is one of the most iconic support Pokemon in the history of the game. Its Pokepower, Cosmic Power, allows you to put up to 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck, and then draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. This Pokepower was incredible for cycling through your deck, putting back cards you didn't need right now, and hopefully drawing into situationally better cards. Throughout 2008, 2009, and 2010, Claydol was featured in dozens of different archetypes since its Pokepower was so good and could be utilized in just about any sort of deck. Number 1, Setup. Although Claydol was so widely played, Uxie may have even been more popular due to it being a basic Pokemon. Uxie's Pokepower Setup allows you to draw until you have 7 cards in hand after you play Uxie from your hand to the bench. Uxie can also recycle itself with its Psychic Restore attack. Uxie was played in every type of deck, even more so than Claydol since Uxie offered a burst of draw power as early as turn 1, and it did not require any additional costs or evolution. I selected Uxie's setup as the best Pokepower of all time, and I'm pretty confident in this ranking. But I'm just one Pokemon card obsessed person. Let me know what your top 10 Pokepowers of all time would be in the comments down below. Thanks for watching today on Beastcoast Pokemon.